are honored to serve the artists from the Rio Grande and Gulf Coast of Texas to the Delta of Arkansas, Missouri's Ozark Mountains, and the wide sweeping plains of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. The geography of the land informs the arts in our region. We know these places. We know the power of our states and our region's artists to engage our communities. As the nation's first regional art organization, we are also honored to be the first regional art organization to host the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies with support from all of the 6 states, which are Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. And a special thank you to the Missouri Arts Council for their assistance and planning with the Assembly. Michael, thank you to you and your team. Collaboration led to our realization that more can be achieved together than individually. Mid-America's model of coming together and supporting the arts in our communities at a local, but also regional level was replicated. Now all the regional art organizations work harmoniously with one another, centering artists, celebrating various cultures, and boosting art experiences in communities across the United States. I first came to Mid-America Arts Alliance through my position as chair of the Oklahoma Arts Council, and I quickly learned the ability of Mid-America to magnify the arts in the regional level. I'm honored to serve as chair now as this incredible art organization reaches the milestone of 50 years, assuring there's more art for more people. And it was as chair of the Oklahoma Arts Council, I witnessed the direct and immediate impact of the arts and arts funding. I particularly enjoyed the work in rural communities and in native lands across the state. State art agencies can help transform and value a community's creativity and its artists. I commend the outstanding ways in which you all enrich and enliven the quality of life and boost economic development in communities of all sizes around the nation. Mid-America Arts Alliance amplifies the work that so many of you inside this room and outside this room have been doing for a long time. I applaud the work you do in your states, jurisdictions, and communities, and I also think we all realize that our work is not done. Our growth continues, our artists create, our organizations connect and present. The art transforms, and all of us work to assure the arts continue to relate and respond to the creativity that flourishes across the United States. Now I would like to welcome Pam Barreau to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Incidentally, happy anniversary to Mid-America Arts Alliance. Happy anniversary. Thank you so much for being our gracious and incredible hosts. And thanks as well to the regional arts organizations for last evening's reception. It was fantastic. Are we ready for our plenary? Yes, here we go. All right. For more than 25 years, Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson's work has focused on understanding and elevating arts, culture, and design as critical elements of healthy communities. Her work blends social science and arts and humanities-based approaches to comprehensive community revitalization, systems change, the dynamics of race and ethnicity, and the roles of arts and culture in communities. And we were so elated. After the confirmation by the US Senate in December, Dr. Jackson became the 13th chair of the NEA in January. For this historic appointment, Dr. Jackson is the nation's first NEA chair to be an African-American and Mexican-American woman. Yes. As we all know closely, she was appointed to the National Council on the Arts by President Barack Obama in 2012, where she served until becoming chair of the NEA. So we know that she brings a really deep understanding of not only the work of the NEA, but its potential, its incredible potential. Dr. Jackson grew up in South Los Angeles and as a child spent summers in her mother's hometown of Mexico City and visited her father's home state of Ohio. Her love of the arts stems from her parents, who encouraged Dr. Jackson and her brother to learn about the richness of their cultures through the arts. What a beautiful entrance to a life and a career that is now supporting and leading the arts on behalf of the entire country. I am thankful that already in her tenure, Dr. Jackson has elevated to Congress and others the importance of the federal, state, and regional partnership program. It is with deep appreciation and even deeper admiration that I'm honored to welcome Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson to speak with you today.
Thank you. That was so warm and generous. Thank you, Pam, for that welcome and introduction. And thank you all for such a warm, warm welcome. Pam, thank you for your inspiring and excellent leadership. And thank you for inviting me here to join you in Kansas City. I had the privilege of addressing some of you back in the spring when I was really just a few weeks into my tenure via Zoom. And even over Zoom, the passion you carry for your work was palpable. And here we are together in person. And just how wonderful and inspiring is that? I'm delighted to see you all here and also grateful for the colleagues that are joining us virtually. To all of you, thank you for what you do every day to advance the arts and communities all across our nation. And in addition to expressing my gratitude, I also want to extend congratulations, as others did, to Mid-America Arts Alliance, based here in Kansas City. And congratulations on your 50th anniversary. I'd also like to congratulate the Pacific Island jurisdictions and the Western States Arts Federation on their recent partnership. The ability to better serve communities in the Pacific jurisdictions and lift up the rich culture that exists there holds such promise for all of us. And I also want to especially recognize our colleagues from Puerto Rico and our colleagues from Kentucky who are here even in difficult times at home. Thank you for your effort to be here. So I'm 8 months into this position, and I have to say it's an extraordinary time to work from this perch. We're coming out of a pandemic. We are at times exhausted and cognizant of demands that still need tending to, as we know that we're part of a sector that was really hard hit. We're in the midst of a racial reckoning and heightened attention to historic and systemic inequalities. We're in a federal environment that is pumping out public funding for physical infrastructure at a scale we haven't seen before. We're happily on the hook for executive orders focused on justice and equity and these are to be carried out in a volatile, politically polarized environment. We're also at a time that I think it demands learning from our examined experience and resisting the urge to just snap back to what was pre-pandemic. So we survived the last 2 years by being nimble and imaginative, questioning orthodoxies, and in the process, also developing greater discernment for what is essential and what isn't. As I share some thoughts with you today about the direction I'm taking while at the helm of the NEA, I want to underscore the importance of the relationship that the NEA shares with you, the state arts agencies and the regional arts organizations. I believe that at our best, our relationship is not only financial. At our best, we are collaborators rowing in the same direction. We're a supportive learning community, sharing our examined experience and striving to be impactful and equitable as we take our collective and individual work to the next level. At our best, we understand the advantages and limitations of our respective perches, and we think strategically about what we can do from where we sit. I believe that the NEA can't do its best work without open channels of communication with you and the benefit of your experience, your perspectives, and your reach. This has been evident often, and most recently and dramatically in our collaboration to distribute ARP resources at a time of crisis and uncertainty. It's only through strong collaboration that we can truly create equitable access to arts opportunities and better address the needs of underserved populations. So over the last several months, as I've traveled around the country, I've had the great opportunity to meet some of you and learn about your work, how it's structured, the opportunities you see, the challenges you face, and the ways and places where the NEA might be more helpful and where we might learn from you. This summer, I had the privilege of spending several days in Alabama with Elliot Knight from the State Arts Agency. Where's Elliot? There. And also Susie Circumer from South Arts. So together we toured Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma, visiting grantees, talking with artists and arts administrators, meeting with mayors and city officials, as well as members of the local community who benefit from arts programming. And it was an impactful visit. It's one that I keep bringing up, and my colleagues will probably have heard me bring them up before, so here I am bringing it up again. But it was really an impactful visit because we saw opportunities to remove barriers to access to resources. We got a better sense of who could do what from their respective perch and how to enable positive systemic change that is durable and actually allows us to progress towards our shared missions. So I left that joint visit really excited about what could be possible through bolstered relationships among us. Our viable collaboration, our active and ongoing ability to share insights, adjust and coordinate, I think it's essential. And I believe in my core that this is what we have to continue to strive towards. So as I share with you some of the things that are going on at the NEA, I want to reference some fundamental principles that undergird my work and my approach there. And for some of you who have heard me speak before, these premises may sound familiar. And I won't dwell on them, but I think that they're important to surface. You can go to the slide. No? Yes? So the first idea is that all people have the capacity to be creative. And creativity is an individual and community asset from which to build. A second idea is that the ability for people to be expressive and tell their own stories on their own terms as we do through the arts. That's a critical dimension of justice and equity. Third, arts and cultural activity happens in many kinds of places and takes many forms. We often default to an important idea, but it's only part of a larger one, and that's the idea of production of artistic product for dissemination and consumption. And of course, that's one way of thinking about engagement, but we also have to think about making, doing, teaching at the professional level and non-professional level. And that the arts happen in a multitude of places, from those venues that are explicitly cultural venues to other kinds of places that are more quotidian, that are part of our everyday lived experience. A fourth idea is that art process can be as important as, and in some cases, even more important than art product. Sometimes that's hard to reckon with because we're so geared towards the thing at the end to be consumed. But in addition to that, the value of being engaged in creative practice is so critically important. A fifth idea is that artists, culture bearers, and designers have many kinds of relationships to publics. And at our best, the diversity of ways in which artists and the arts organizations work and contribute to society, they're all supported and encouraged. And last, the arts are intrinsically important, period, full stop. At the same time, they contribute to other community dynamics and aspirations. And the arts, I believe, are most impactful when they don't exist in a bubble, but in connection to other dimensions of our communities, towns, and cities. A related concept is that while we continue to understand and lift up the value of the arts in economic terms, our appreciation for the roles of the arts in our society extend beyond only economic metrics. I want to advance the National Endowment for the Arts as a national resource. We often think about the NEA as a grant maker, and to be sure, that will continue. That is a primary function of the NEA. But I also want people to understand the Arts Endowment as a national resource that is a partner in helping to build healthy arts ecosystems. So I'm interested in making sure that we're able to deploy all of the assets and currencies that we have available to us in service of our mission. And this includes not only money for grants, but also our ability to partner with other federal agencies, our convening and connecting power, research, the bullhorn or pulpit of the executive branch, and more. So in addition to grant maker, we also need to understand the NEA as connector, convener, collaborator, thought leader, information provider, catalyst, amplifier. Perhaps at the state level, you're already also acting as a statewide resource. This shift is something I'd like to explore with you as we continue to build our ways of working together. As I travel domestically and internationally, I've been giving voice to the concept of artful lives. The notion of an artful life is a big tent idea. It's inclusive, equitable, representative. Of course, it includes arts participation in what's typically been our default mode as audience or consumer, but it also includes a wide range of activity from the everyday aesthetic choices and practices that we pursue as non-professional creatives, making, doing, teaching, learning, to the creation, presentation, consumption of professional art. It all has value and benefits, and at its best, it's mutually reinforcing. Another idea that I'm advancing is this notion of arts at the intersections and arts in all. As some of you may know, my work for nearly 3 decades has been at the intersection of art and comprehensive community development. And I came at this work and belief that the arts are a critical element of what is required to fulfill this nation's promise. And again, at their most powerful, the arts don't exist in a bubble. The sector has to be strong, and part of its strength, I think, lies in the ability to also support arts at the intersection of other fields. Not only does this maximize the power of the arts, it also expands stakeholders in the arts and by extension, resources available for artists and arts organizations. So from my perch at the NEA, I think that part of our job has to be bolstering existing and creating new win-win collaborations with other federal agencies. I think of this work as contributing to the creation of our arts-infused civic infrastructure. And I think of civic infrastructure as the mechanisms and relationships that we rely on to care for each other. So we're not starting from scratch at the NEA, as I know that you're not starting from scratch in your agencies. The NEA has long collaborations with the Department of Education around arts ed, the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs through our Creative Forces work, dealing with military and veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and other invisible wounds. So at the intersection of health, our interagency human development task force with many federal agencies and more. Most recently, we finalized a collaboration with the General Services Administration's Art and Architecture program. And this is a program where 0.5% of resources tied to federal buildings has to go to the arts. In collaboration with the NEA, we're helping to make sure that those resources are available in equitable ways, that there's far reach. There's $3.2 billion currently that have to be obligated. 0.5% has to be obligated for that, which is about $16 million. It doesn't add to our bottom line, but it is a way that as a national organization devoted to the arts, we can help to make sure that it is distributed and accessible in a way that is consistent with the kind of access that we all wish to see. And another initiative that's recent is something started by President Biden, which is the United We Stand initiative. And this is an all-government anti-hate fueled violence initiative. We're partnering with the National Endowment for the Humanities to work on both preventive and reparative work in places and cities around the country where there are survivors of horrible hate crimes. And what was really heartening recently, that there was a summit at the White House week before last, and we were in the room with other agencies, Homeland Security and Department of Defense, and there was also Department of Justice and many other agencies, and we were taken seriously. Our contributions were understood as valid and important. And I think we were able to stress the point that in order to do work that has the capacity to move one from one paradigm to another, that the role of the arts and humanities is imperative because it makes us work with our head, heart, and hand. It is about the intellectual, the emotional, the physical, and that's what we're able to offer through the arts. Without that, I really do believe we're stuck. And if we don't recognize that we need to engage in this way to advance change, we'll remain stuck. And I think we have a lot to offer in all of these initiatives. There have been some initial conversations with the Department of Transportation around arts-infused civic infrastructure braided with investments in physical infrastructure, as well as some exploratory conversations with the Surgeon General and Health and Human Services, where there's a particular interest in the intersection of arts and mental health and well-being, with some focus especially on youth mental health. So the idea of the NEA helping to build a healthy arts ecosystem that supports all of this and takes all of this seriously is central to the work during the time that I'm at the helm. This notion of healthy arts ecosystems, I think, is a really important thing to consider now as we're coming hopefully into a new period, into an opportunity where we don't just rebuild, but build. And the notion of healthy arts ecosystems, I think, supports artful lives, that big tent intention. And this again includes the traditional paradigm of producing, presenting, and consuming, but it also includes the much more expanded notion with a particular focus on inclusion and reaching underserved populations. There are several efforts afoot or in development that advance the strong arts ecosystem intention. And one is the equity pilot program with the regional arts organizations, which I'm really excited about. And I know there's a session after this where we'll have an opportunity to do a deep dive into some visioning related to that. And that's focused on advancing the work of organizations that can help us increase access to arts opportunities to underserved populations through systemic investments that are durable. There is an effort to engage more intentionally with local arts agencies, helping them to show up in ways that advance artful lives and also work effectively at intersections. There's work to expand our Mayor's Institute on City Design and the CIRD, which is the Community Institute on Rural Design. I'm blanking. Anyway, they're helping our local officials to understand the power of the arts, I think, in addressing both wicked problems and opportunities is something that I think has a lot of promise. With CIRD especially, we're looking to lift up the assets that exist in rural communities, make those visible, and help to develop them further. Another effort has to do with continuing to support and catalyze connections in communities, similar to what I described in Alabama. When are those opportunities where we have local, state, regional, local, and federal, that whole vertical axis focused and understanding what roles they can play strategically. There's also interest in the next generation leadership development efforts, including HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges and governments. So as I said before, I know we're not starting from scratch and there's a lot of good work to build from. In closing, as we open up possibly discussion in the hallways or wherever we have the opportunity for more exchange, I invite you to consider some core questions with me. And one is, what do healthy arts ecosystems that lead to more just and equitable communities where all people can thrive, what are their components? How do they function? How do we know we're moving in the right direction? Another question is, in thinking about helping all people live artful lives and the work we do from our respective perches, what have we learned, especially over the last couple of years? What beliefs and ways of working do we keep, alter, or shed? How do we not just snap back to business as usual when we know we can do better? And last, how do we acknowledge and tend to our exhaustion sometimes and our excitement at the same time, and the opportunities before us, those that are simple and sometimes complex? So I'm enthusiastic about our work together. And I'm here today with my colleagues from the NEA, to share some thoughts, but also to listen. And mindful of some of the challenges ahead, I'm also deeply inspired by what is possible and what we can do together. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for the inspiration, for your leadership, and frankly, for the many gifts you're bringing to the NEA and to us. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver is now serving his 9th term representing Missouri's 5th Congressional District. The congressman also served for 12 years on the City Council of Missouri's largest municipality, Kansas City, where we're all happy to be gathered in community as a state arts agency family. I also note that he was elected as the city's first African-American mayor in 1991. That's right. During his 8-year stint in the office of the mayor, Cleaver distinguished himself as an economic development activist and an unapologetic redevelopment craftsman. Congressman Cleaver, thank you so much for being a proud and unapologetic supporter of the arts as well. Thank you for prioritizing being here with us today to welcome us to your lovely city, which we all now know and appreciate as a really great art town. And thank you also for coming to welcome and acknowledge our friend and our keynote speaker today, Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson. And so, Congressman, the honor is indeed ours. The mic is yours. And welcome.
Welcome to Kansas City. For those of you who are from distant places, we are really, really pleased to have you in our city. How many of you drove in? Oh my goodness. We're glad to have you especially. And we also want to make sure that you're treated right while you're here. And it's a policy that I started back in the 90s when I was mayor, that, you know, if you drove in and if you are parked in the downtown area, and as you can tell, it gets kind of congested downtown. And so if one of our officers places a ticket on your dash or anywhere in your car, feel free to call us. I'm serious, 816-842-45. 816-842-4545. We have people standing ready to take you to the municipal court. No, I'm serious. We're glad to have you in our village nonetheless. And one of the reasons I am so pleased to be here and would like to welcome your new leader, because I think listening to your speech was heartwarming to me. I'm not sure that you who consider yourselves artists, and I think most people are, but there are some who are much more endowed than others, that this is one of the most important moments, at least during my lifetime. And it might be important for our generation to understand a couple of things. Art defines that moment. And we go back in history. One of my great regrets is that I did not major in archaeology. I just regret, I think that's what I was called to do, and I blew it. But I think if you look at the archaeological landscape, it tells what was happening at that moment. And ladies and gentlemen, we desperately need for this moment to be laid out for future generations so they'll understand this moment and what we experienced. Just think about this. We have democracy on the edge of a cliff. We are coming out of one pandemic. It looks like polio is trying to fight its way back. The Omicron virus is standing up. We got to fight it. We got an attempt to annihilate a nation over in Eurasia. I mean, this moment must be defined. And a lot of people in this moment won't even understand it, but it has to be defined for next generations. On our convention center, on top are some things called sky stations. When I was mayor, we built the convention center, and I had those, chose those sky stations, as we call them, as the one thing we wanted to make sure that if you're flying into Kansas City, you could see it from the air at night. And when those things were put up, people went crazy. I mean, you know, people are like, we're going to kill you. We're going to poison your dog. I mean, people just went crazy on the sky stations. And then after about 9, 10 years, people would come up and say, well, you know, I told Cleaver that that's what he ought to do. They put those, and now when the Chiefs play at night, and you can see them when they do the panoramic view of the downtown area, they'll point out the sky, and I bet there are thousands of people in their home saying, well, yeah, I'm part of the encouragement team on getting those up there. But so when you love art and when you deal with art, you're not doing it for some kind of praise or for or even monetary benefit, as I think most of you know. But art is good, and so when you do that, you are good. I mean, when you're given that art, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to leave. But Mary's cleaning up her house. She's also trying to take care of her 4-year-old. And she's downstairs and she hears nothing. For every parent in here, you know that the most dangerous sound with children is nothing. And so she immediately turns off the vacuum. She runs up the steps, and just as she thought, Billy was trying to see how much water he could get out of the tub onto the bathroom floor with his bucket. His faucet is running, and he's pouring it like it was sand in the bathroom. And so she turns off the faucet. She mops up the water. She goes back downstairs, and then she hears a squeal, and she runs into the kitchen. Billy's trying to put the cat in the microwave, and she rescues the cat. And then all of a sudden, she can't see him. And so he's outside trying to start up the lawnmower in the garage. And so unlike those of us, you know, who are you know, great parents, she goes out and she grabs him and she shakes him. And she says, Billy, why don't you just be good? And he said, okay, mommy, I'll be good for some gummy bears. I need a honey bun, and I want some Cheetos. And she said, no, Billy, I want you to be like your daddy and just be good for nothing. If you have been called, in my world, it is a calling to be an artist. It is a blessing from God to be an artist. And you do it for nothing. You're not doing it because of some kind of praise. You're doing it for nothing because the world needs you more than you need it. This is a calling. And I wish that I had some skill to do what you do. I want you to understand you've been blessed, you've been anointed. I don't care what your faith tradition is. You've been anointed. You're somebody special. You're good for nothing. And don't forget it. Welcome to Kansas City.